You're alive. It's Wednesday night live.
Hello. Should we start actually doing the odd essay though? Maybe. Let's do the clap.
Do the clap. Welcome, listener, to How the Sausage
Podcast.
is Made.
Oh shit! Hold on, I've done something here. What have I done? I don't know what a calendar time is. Oh my god.
This
10?
is my voice on TV. Hello. Testing. Yep, we're all good. Where do you want to go? 30? Not 30.
Yeah, not 30. I've done something.
40.
It keeps going on calendar. Stop it. 40. Yeah.
5 seconds. Pop.
Cracking.
Yes, welcome to the show. We're here to talk about Point Break, which is what
sit on live and not talk.
We did last time. We tried to do last time, and then we ended up spending an hour and a half talking about nothing.
Ross's poor personal decisions in life.
Yeah. Ross
and complete lack of taste and any kind of class, intellect. It's all there, really.
Yeah.
So let's go through the rigmarole, doing the whole usual thing. This movie was from 1992, 89,
1991, I believe. Yes, 1991. 89, 92. Pick a date.
91 was right. 91 was right.
Oh, I need a funny line.
Oh yeah, shit.
Oh shit. Point Break quotes.
Are you ready?
Not really. Okay.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Cool. Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of the Imaginary Movie Podcast, a podcast where we go live on YouTube for 10 minutes, read Wikipedia, say nothing, and then we do an intro for a podcast. It's all about the editing. That is how you make a podcast. My name's David, and I've loaded up my dog gun, and I'm going to go and shoot Ronald Reagan so that Jodie Foster will fall in love with me. That's this movie, right? That's this movie?
It's possibly. I'd like to watch that movie, whatever it is. You in the starring role, I think, and you've got the look. You've got the look right now with the hat and the beard.
A presidential assassin. Oh, sorry, an attempted presidential assassin.
Couldn't even fucking get it right, could you? I mean, just think of it.
I can't even succeed at being a presidential assassin. So
think of the house. Think of if we hadn't had the rampant neoliberalism that Reagan brought upon us. Think of the house prices now. We'd all be living in a socialist utopia. Maybe not. My name's Sam, and I am not a crook.
This week, and by this week, as usual, and you'll tell in the next hour, I do mean about 3 weeks ago, we watched Point Break from 1991. The sort of like this is the revelation that Keanu Reeves is an action star. That's right, that guy from Bill and Ted. He can do action.
Yeah, I mean, he can't quite act yet. He's he can do. He's on the spectrum of acting.
Like all great people in history, Sam. He had no idea what he was doing, and then he started getting paid to do it, and then eventually kind of caught up with the job which he had been paid millions of dollars for years to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then
Keep hoping our politicians will get there as well. But again, it's a process. It's a process.
Give it
Fake
8
it till you
years,
make it.
7-8 years, and we're running around the Matrix, pretty much doing the same character as he is doing here, which is like slightly befuddled man. Huh? I missed the joke. Like that's the scene. That seems to be kind of Reeves' main output. Is just
it's kind of like, especially in this era, isn't it? Like the 90s, and Speed. We've done Speed before.
It's the same guy. I mean,
it's the same movie. It's in a lot of ways.
I do have a theory with Keanu Reeves because I think The Matrix really did elevate him to like a different level in terms of where he sits as an actor. Because when you look at his actual filmography, like there's I'm just loading up now. So we've got things like Constantine, like just what like just him doing the same thing again, looking serious. And then we've got obviously like John Wick, which is a bit more. Again, look at Bill and Ted is where he's the craziest and I think the most fun. But everything else is kind of on the spectrum of like someone being moody and trying to be moody, and that's kind of his whole thing.
Well, his whole thing is like, so he did Bill and Ted, and that's like dude, what, dude, and it's just like. It's the surfer thing, which is kind of actually does better in Bill and Ted than he does in this, I think, maybe.
Yeah.
You got this and Speed. It kind of like his, hey, this guy can do action. The Matrix, I think, is like that makes him an A-list celebrity. I don't think he's ever quite lived up to that. I haven't watched a lot of the John Wick movies, and by all accounts, they're a good genre movie, but I still don't think Keanu Reeves is like what one of our premier leading men. No. In terms of like acting ability,
But he is a meme, isn't he? He is a meme.
Oh,
and that is half the battle.
And thus far has not been revealed to be some kind of sexual predator or tax evader or anything like that, which is always nice.
I think we need a jingle. I think we need is this guy a sexual predator?
I think we get a sound of Nixon saying, "I am not a crook."
Yeah.
And we just play that when somebody isn't a sexual predator, or rather, it has not yet been revealed that they're a sexual predator.
So we get
I am not a crook.
Who was a crook saying that he wasn't a crook to signify that someone isn't a crook.
Right? I think it all plays into the Hollywood thing quite well, Sam. I think it lends itself to the theme.
Yeah, we do need. This is the problem. We do need to always be vigilant to the fact that a significant number of men in Hollywood seem to be total assholes who will abuse their power.
I'd say probably most men in power seem to be assholes.
Okay.
That seems to be a relatively like hard and fast rule.
Yeah. It's the power. First you get the power, then you get the sugar, and then you get the...
Then you assault a load of women and hide it for years and years and years.
Yeah, and then build a fountain a mountain of lies upon that.
And then you go to Epstein Island, and it's all just one big thing.
And then you get
hobnob with Prince Andrew.
Jail.
And then you kill yourself in jail, totally legitimately. No suspicious activity there, Your Honour.
No, but I think what we have established, though, as far as we can determine, is that Keanu Reeves does not fit in this.
He's going to age like milk if it turns out next week he's a proper scumbag.
I really like. It would be as.
Let's talk about this for a sec. We always get bogged down, and do you know what? Like, obviously, it's horrible that these things have happened to these people, but like, there's a secondary thing where it kind of taints their work as well. And I'm not trying to defend.
No, it's very secondary, isn't it? But
yeah, totally. But like from a totally selfish point of view, like Kevin Spacey is a good example of like a total scumbag. Who, if you'd asked me 5 years ago, I probably would have said was like, I probably like everything I've seen him in, well, mainly because he's usually playing a total scumbag, and maybe there's something in that. But it kind of makes it difficult to then talk about that person's work without the conversation just being, how do we keep letting people get away with this for decades?
I know. We were talking about this, me and my wife were talking about this in the context of she went to see the recent Elvis movie. and
Oh yeah.
and like it was produced by or with the Elvis estate, and there's people still alive. Like he had at age 24, had a relationship and then married a 14-year-old, and you're like, I mean, like it was the 70s, I guess. Like, but no, there is no defending it. And so you kind of take all of his like, oh, Elvis is, and obviously had a very difficult life, and all the money in the world. Oh, it's so hard. But anyway, but you end up just it ends up tainting his music. Same with Michael Jackson. The same with um, a famous jazz musician who I can't remember the name of. And so you just all of it just gets ruined for you, doesn't it? Because you're like, I'm like, yeah, I like Kevin Spacey movies. I think he's great in Usual Suspects, and I love that documentary about himself, American
I was just about to say,
Beauty.
yeah.
Sometimes when someone tells you
he decides not to statutory rape that girl.
yeah,
He decides not to do that.
He thinks about it a lot. I think that's probably.
He thinks about it a lot.
It's like he was hiding in plain sight. If someone tells you who they are, believe them. Like that is the thing.
LA Confidential, he's a total scumbag.
Yeah.
Like all these movies where he's the bad guy, and you're like, oh, we just didn't see that coming. We just didn't see it coming that this guy's a bad guy. Why did we not see that coming? He only ever takes roles where he plays a total sociopath, but
that said, "I am a literal, sex offender," and we all just thought it was a joke. Like it's just, I know, and I think as long as again, Keanu Reeves, as far as we're isn't.
We would like to issue a formal statement on behalf of the Imaginary Movie Podcast that we are not casting any aspersions or any slander towards Keanu Reeves, who, as far as we know, is an upstanding member of the community and seemingly seems to be a pretty nice dude.
Yeah. Well, I'm doing the personal life check, which is go on Wikipedia, go onto your favorite actor or director or whatever else, and just scroll down to personal life and have a quick scan. You're like,
if it's more than 2 paragraphs, that's usually not a good sign.
Yeah, I mean, it's
like if it's not just they married such and such and they have 3 children, you're like, there's too much here.
Yeah, exactly. So I think we're okay. I think we're okay on the Keanu Reeves front for now. So let's get into this film. Let's get into a little bit of a plot summary.
Before we get into that, Sam, I just want to address, and obviously our estimable colleague Ross has got, what's it this time? Whooping cough?
Hysterical pregnancy.
Hysterical pregnancy. Yeah. That's the one. And we didn't know for weeks. But you and him hadn't seen this movie before, had you?
No, I had not seen this. This is one of my,
How could you not have seen this movie, Sam?
We talked about this in.
Have you even watched Citizen Kane at night?
We talked about this last week, and we talked about the chair leg on my seat is broken. That's good.
He's making a lovely sound for all of our listeners. Clunk, clunk.
We talked about how everyone has blind spots, and maybe some people,
and they should deservedly be given shit for that by their friends.
They should, and maybe some people on this podcast have more blind spots than others. Just saying. But my point was,
I'll blind your spots.
My point is that yes, I hadn't seen this film, but I was very aware of it because I knew that this is. This is a Keanu cast verse that we're building, and also obviously the scene where he points up in the air is a very cultural.
We almost watched Hot Fuzz. That was kind of like, for some reason, that was the movie in contention, and we decided to watch this instead.
Yeah, and there's a Hot Fuzz reference to that. There's a Point Break reference in Hot Fuzz, isn't there? I think Nick Frost.
I had seen this movie, and this is kind of like the. For a lot of more modern action movies, especially things in this sort of like John Wick kind of vein, and even things like The Matrix, they kind of owe a lot to the things that this movie does, the things that Catherine Bigelow, the director, decides to do, and some of the action that we see. A lot of that is kind of like carried forward in other, like I said, Speed there's a lot in common with this movie. Mm-hmm. Hollywood's great for do that, but again,
yeah. It set the template, didn't it? For I think where like I'm going to say it, The Thinking Man's action movie could go, because as much as this is like, it's not overstated. It's not a highly cerebral movie that you have to, but compare it to the schlockiness of Bad Boys. I think this is actually a little bit higher on the spectrum of this movie's trying to say something. Mostly, it's like pretty facile about surfing, but it's trying to like impart.
There's a really important thing that it's doing, which we'll get into, Sam, because you are right. There's a really important plot and story thing that we're doing here. But give us a plot summary, and then we can just splurge for like, I don't know, 4 minutes, and then we can go home.
Yes. Well, see, now I close.
Because obviously we're in our professional podcast studio, of course.
Yeah. We're
Imaginary Inc. on Imaginary Boulevard, Imaginaryton.
Oh, the Hammock District. So an FBI agent goes undercover to catch a gang of surfers who may be bank robbers. It's one of those great ideas for a film. What if surfers were bank robbers? And pretty much from there, you can figure out where this is going to go. And it's a nice snapshot movie, a kind of world movie. Sometimes we call it, where you're brought into a universe, and the universe is set out for you, and it's kind of like you wouldn't necessarily see the surfer dudes of 1990s LA like
it's a subculture
as an
movie.
interesting.
It's a subculture movie in a lot of the same ways that like later films like The Fast and Furious are, where that is almost the exact same plot, where a police guy goes undercover to catch street racers who are committing crimes, and it's like, right, so we've got, and I can't help but think that the idea for this movie was surfing's cool. Surfers are hot right now. Like, we can film this for $4 on a beach in LA, and just get a load of surfers as extras, which they did. Like, and maybe the whole movie kind of grew from that in a lot of ways. And I think it exceeds that kind of like basic premise quite a lot. But it's definitely like, do you know what's like sexy and hot is like a load of dudes on the beach playing football and like surfing. Yeah.
That's what you want, isn't it? That's what you want, and I think
it's a summer movie.
It gives you a great sense of what life is like for these people. It introduces the culture, as you say, and then we get to see how they smash that together with the bank robbing stuff, which is like pretty crazy. And probably my criticism of this film is like, what? Wait, but they're bank robbers now? Like, why are they bank robbers? And they seem pretty chilled out. They're like, they don't seem to have many expenses, like a surfboard and cheap beer. Like, that seems to be where they're at. Why are they robbing banks? What are they doing with the money? And questions
bank
go
robbing
on and
is sexy, isn't it? Like, we talked about this. I watched Heat recently, and there's a movie where bank robbing is sexy as shit.
That film is dripping in sensuality, isn't it?
Oh yeah, it's all Pacino and De Niro, like just knocking.
Fucking just like that. Yes, like
yes. Catch me, De Niro. Catch me, Pacino. Sorry, catch me, Pacino. Come get me.
It is that, and let's hit it right now. The homoeroticism in this movie is something to be absolutely celebrated and reveled in.
The word that's been sort of chucked around is because it's Catherine Bigelow directing, which is, for 1991, like somewhat laudable that like they got a woman to direct this quite masculine, in its way.
True.
And again, I don't want to throw a parade because I think there was nepotism involved, but.
Oh, she was married. She was married to James Cameron, executive producer of this movie.
We can't have everything, Sam. We can't have everything. Like, I think women in cinema is one thing, right? Like, let's just take that and be happy about it, rather than asking questions like, was she qualified? Was she inherently like better at making films? But I do think that she's obviously good at her job because this is a good movie.
Let's move on from our cynicism of Hollywood nepotism. But she is great in this, and I think you're very right to pinpoint her.
Well, the word that gets thrown around a lot of the reviews from the time is female gaze. I think because, like, if you imagine if this movie had even been made by Jim Cameron or who's the explosion guy?
Michael Bay. Yeah.
Michael Bay. Or Michael.
Yeah.
If this was Michael Bay, this would be tits wall to wall. Like, do you know what I mean? And so, like, actually, it's quite refreshing that we only really get one female character in this movie. For better or for worse, we can get into that a little bit. Laurie Petty. But we get a lot of like really sexy dudes being really sexy, and in that Top Gun kind of thing, like we're all playing volleyball on the beach and it's all slow motion and everyone's nips are out, except Keanu Reeves, who presumably didn't have a good tan.
Yeah,
wears a shirt this entire time.
I know. It's so
Patrick
hot,
Patrick Swayze's got enough chest hair for the both of them.
Yeah. I think Bigelow's lead on this, because the female gaze is a good way of describing it, and unlike the male gaze, it ends up actually being pretty positive. And so what we get is like, it's a kind of a romance movie in a way, because you've got this will they won't they, like, I mean, they're not quite oiling each other up, but Keanu Reeves and I'm not saying that,
but one of them gets a cramp in their calf, Sam. What are you saying? You're not going to help a bro out?
Yeah, exactly. Like,
I bet there's fan fiction about that.
Oh, Rule 34, of course. Just gonna do some like googling while you talk. There's a great foundation of this film, in that it is actually about the relationship between these two guys, and it, as much as it's a bank robber and police officer thing, there's also like, it's quite a spiritual movie as well, isn't it? Which is a lot of what. It's a lot of what a Swayze.
I disagree. I really disagree.
Oh, sorry, hold on. Because Patrick Swayze spends the whole time being philosophical and like talking about the nature of reality, man, and we need to just go with the waves, man. Like, it's rinsed through this, and I think a lot of that comes from the fact that it's a bit deeper, and their relationship, and like, as we see at the end of the film, Reeves lets him go because of like a very convincing speech about.
I mean, the way I took this, and you've seen this movie if you listen to this podcast, so you can read Wikipedia as easily as you can listen to us idiots talk about it. So we'll just talk about the things we want to talk about here. Like, I get what you mean, Sam, and the movie does certainly in the early bits portray the Brody character, that's Patrick Swayze, as like this sort of almost kind of, he's kind of half cult leader and kind of half like, pastoral sort of like dad of the group. It's this weird, but you are right, and there is all that spiritualism stuff laid in. But for me, the movie kind of takes that, and then like it shows you the other side of the coin, when they have the bank robbery, when his friends die on the plane, when he's had Laurie Petty kidnapped, and all of this, and you kind of show the inverse of that, where you maybe like, for me, that strips away all the spiritualism and all the truth that was in that. It strips it all away and says, actually, like, for all that this guy talks a big game, like, he's ultimately like a very selfish individual who's out to pursue the things he wants to pursue. And I get where you get the spiritualism thing, but I think this movie builds it up to then tear it down and kind of show you the darker side of this guy, and maybe like prove to you that while he may have had some good points, also like we do live in a society to a certain extent.
I think you're right, but I think that the actual tearing down of the the aura that surrounds Swayze, I don't think it's hard enough. I wanted to see him kill someone. I wanted to see him like be completely selfish and brutal, and because that's the point. The point is that they're living this like cool surf, surf, it's all peace and love, man, blah blah blah. And then they're going into bank robbers, and and I hate this fucking line in movies. It's all insured. It's all insured. What about? Do you think the security guard that has got lifelong PTSD? Do you think he can afford insurance in the hellscape that is America? Absolutely, he's not.
Sam, they shot him. It's fine. He's dead.
They shot him. Yeah. Like, so.
Don't worry about it.
Even when it goes
service
wrong,
payout for his wife. It all worked out for him.
Yeah,
he's won the American dream. He was shot on the job as a security guard, and his family get to have financial stability for at least 10 years.
So I think we could have maybe leaned in a bit harder on how the self-interest. Now, bank robbing movies. Let's talk about one of my favorite films of all time, Bandits. Oh, you've never heard of it? No, no one has. It came out like 25
I have
minutes
heard of
after
it.
25 minutes after 9/11 happened, and so the whole world just
5 minutes. The premiere was going on while the towers were burning. It was mad.
at like 9:45 in the morning on a Wednesday or whatever the hell the day it was. That movie, I think is a does lots of bank heist movies. But I like that movie because the characters are fundamentally flawed, and I think this movie though I think pulls
fundamentally flawed, Sam. Their characters, like the actual like characters that you've written,
but
and that's something this movie does well as well. Is that while Patrick Swayze might be like in an alternate cut of this movie, like a cult leader, you kind of understand why him and his friends are doing the things they're doing, and the logic of what they say makes sense. And you don't, in Ocean's 11, you never like the guy who runs the casino. He's never like likable or believe. You know what I mean? You never root for him. You never
hate him, even though he's a complete victim.
Exactly. Even though
he
these
did
people
nothing
are robbing
wrong.
him, he's done nothing apart from start going out with this woman. He's done nothing apart from start to see a woman who happened to be married to this guy. Anyway, this isn't the podcast where we talk about.
Fuck you, Terry Benedict.
No, fuck you, Terry Benedict. But like in this movie, though, they kind of like go to great lengths to maybe kind of have more shades of grey. And actually, the people you really hate in this movie are all the FBI agents who aren't Keanu Reeves or you're pointing
Gary
Busey. Because I was thinking,
stop.
Do you know what I was thinking? Because I keep seeing Jake.
If you're listening to this,
and he looks exactly like his dad.
Dave gestured and stuck his front teeth out, and I was like, "Yep, Gary Busey, there it is." That completely got it for me.
But
yes,
apart from those two, you kind of hate all the other FBI guys because they're kind of the bad guys, and we don't like them, and they're coded to be like
they're stiff shit, aren't they?
In that way that police are sometimes portrayed, like the FBI agents in Rush Hour are portrayed in the same way, where it's like these fucking arseholes think they own the world and they can do whatever they like because they're Americans. So like we don't like them, and Gary Busey's a bit of an oddball generally, and in this movie, and Keanu Reeves is like the fresh-faced. I love his backstory of like he was a college quarterback who threw out his knee, and it's like, well, how did he pass a physical to be in the FBI?
I know.
He loses these guys twice because of his knee, like twice. He's like, oh, well, I'm obviously not capable of doing my job.
Him being like a quarterback, Ohio State quarterback and rookie FBI. I mean, all of it is just like. I mean, they even like Johnny Unitas levels of like.
Well, they call him Johnny Unitas.
They do, and it's
apparently the original working title for this movie was Utah. It was just called Johnny Utah. And I think Johnny Mnemonic taught us that we shouldn't have Keanu Reeves name movies called Johnny. We shouldn't have them. We're not allowed. No.
We just need another film to prove the theory. I think so. Yeah, we could figure that out.
Yeah, and throw a talking whale in there with like a mind device. Have you seen that movie recently?
Johnny 5. What about Johnny 5? Keanu Reeves.
Johnny 5 is
reboot.
Different, but Johnny Mnemonic, Sam, he gets like a RAM upgrade in his head. It's a whole thing.
Stupid. If I remember, yes, such a stupid film. So we've got John C. McGinley as the police chief who's gonna.
I love John C.
Damn it, Ramirez! He
didn't age for about 20 years, and then he aged like all of them at once.
Yeah. Obviously, he was Dr. Cox in Scrubs.
He was in The Rock. He was one of the Navy SEALs.
Oh yeah, I love him in The Rock. He's so shouty. He's actually more shouty in The Rock than in this, which is quite good going considering. So you've got the kind of, and they are the antagonists, aren't they? Really. And I do like the exploration of police guy undercover. If I was sending someone undercover, I really, really would not pick like the Utah State quarterback. They even recognize him as such when they're like on the beach. You're like, Is someone going to maybe like these are literal bank robbers? Maybe like Google around. I mean, they can't Google, but maybe they would
Also,
make
like
some phone calls, send a fax, check their pages.
also maybe someone who can surf.
Yeah.
I mean, like it's fine. I think it works fine in this movie, but does stretch the imagination a bit that they're sending him undercover to like infiltrate these surfers. It's a bit like sending Paul Walker undercover, except he can't drive, and the movie is these street racers teaching him how to drive. That's kind of the same thing. Is like he just shows up on a bicycle and is like, "Hey guys, I like cars. Driving sounds fun, doesn't it?"
So remember, hands on 2 and 11, Paul. Okay, and then we're going to feed it round. Keep your hands on the wheel. We're going to feed it round. And then, sorry, I've had to put on the brakes for you with the other set of pedals that I've got in the learner car. Sorry, Paul, you won't be beating.
Diesel's voice. You have to be, now, Paul. Right, slowly. We're going to approach the lights. We're going to stop, because it's all about family.
Family, yeah. Go watch, and I genuinely don't know which one we're talking about here. Either Gone in 60 Seconds, or the other one.
No, Gone in 60 Seconds is the Nicolas Cage.
Oh, that's the Nick Cage one. What's the other one then?
Where he's doing his weird sexual thing with everyone in the movie. So that's a very different energy.
So
to
it's
the
Gone
Vin
in
Diesel
60
one,
Seconds.
Where Vin Diesel has no chemistry with anyone in the movie.
But what's the film? What's the film? The other one?
Fast and Furious.
Fast and Furious. There we go. I could remember. Thank you. So I completely confused.
And there's 9 of them. There's 9 of them and 2 spin-offs and a cartoon. There's so many. So much of this franchise. It's one of the biggest franchises in the world.
It's not. I think it was like the 8th. I think it was bigger than Lord of the Rings. Go back to our previous episode. I'm sure I list them.
It's quite high up there in terms
in a
of
very funny way.
So franchises that have made cash.
Let's talk about the
and
bank
employed
rob.
Vin Diesel for over a decade.
Yeah.
2 decades. Christ, that first movie is from 21 years ago. I think we decided when we watched
Someone's
it.
got to pay for all that, dome wax.
It ain't cheap.
Not when it's made with the crystallized tears of orphans, like Vin Diesel demands the best. Let's talk about the bank robbing in this film. Gotta say, pretty disappointed as a bank robbing movie. Like the President's things is great. It's a great visual.
And doing the impressions is fun, and like they kind of lean into it. It's good.
I wonder
you don't
where
really get enough of it, and I want maybe more of like the planning. And there isn't planning, and I guess maybe that's where, we were talking about Bandits earlier. Like that's a movie where the planning is kind of the thing, isn't it? Like the night before, and it's the whole sleepover thing. Whereas this is much more like how actual bank robbing happens, which is someone just goes into a bank with a gun and robs it. There's not much planning involved. You go in and you rob it, and you're off.
Yeah, and like many movies, heist movies. Unlike Bandits, in fact, let's go back to my favorite movie, Bandits. You can't do this anymore. Like this was a slice of 90s life. Everything was great. We love the 90s. Let's go back to the 90s, pre 9/11. Everything's great. There's nothing really bad going on. Massive economic prosperity. We haven't had a financial crash in days. Everything's great, and anyone at any point with 0 repercussions can walk into a bank, steal some money, and it's okay because it's insured, and nothing. In fact, I think that's actually how most people made their money in the 90s. They would just rob a bank once or twice a year, and everyone would be like, "Oh, it's your turn. It's your turn to go. Yeah, there you go, mate. Just have it. It's insured. It's fine. Nobody loses. Nothing bad can possibly happen."
There's I know this isn't related at all. I know this isn't related at all, but the movie Free Guy. This is going to be quite a reach of a tangent. Is a like a GTA Online type game? Is the universe? And Ryan Reynolds works in a bank. The NPC that he plays works in a bank, and so they do get robbed every time they're in there. It's like, oh, we're getting robbed. Everyone just like, and it's like an established, like they're all smiling, like, oh, this is fun. Yeah, great. The money's over there. And it's like so routine. And yeah, you're right. Like maybe the 70s were like the peak of bank robbing, though. Like,
but 70s feels dirty. 70 feels like we're actually going to hurt people. Whereas 90s bank robbing is just like, hey, we're just a bunch of funny guys in masks. Yeah. Oh, I'm not a crook, and
you are Richard Nixon.
Yeah,
you weren't charged because Gerald Ford pardoned you. It was a total shit show. Nixon.
But fuck you. You're listening. Are you listening, Richard? Dick.
Who knew we were going to have so many jokes about these presidents? Who are the presidents? So we've got is JFK one of them?
I think it's JFK. I think it is Ford. It's Reagan.
No, it's Carter. It's not.
No,
Ford,
sorry.
Carter.
Yeah, it's Reagan, Carter, Nixon, Johnson, and there's lots of, and it's just quite light, and it's good. But my point is that actually in a bank robbery movie, kind of like to see a bit more of the process of bank robbery. Now that's maybe not what we're going for, and but there's the bank robbing is light in this film, and I think that's because of what we've already praised the movie for, which is that the focus is on like the relationship between these characters and how they're going to get through and all this stuff. How they're going to try and uncover the plot of what's happening. How is Keanu Reeves going to learn how to surf in like 25 minutes that he's got to do so?
How is Keanu Reeves going to learn how to swim in this movie? It really is that. There's a whole scene with because the Laurie Petty character is my only real problem with this movie is that it's the same problem with a lot of action movies of this era. Is like women don't exist in this universe, or if they do, there's one, and they're a love interest, and then everyone else is like an unnamed attractive woman with no lines who is leaving some guy's bedroom. And this movie's really, really guilty of that. Like, and Speed 2, and it's kind of like, that's fine. It's a movie, but like also women do exist in the world. Like we come across them every day in all sorts of places. And it's kind of where like the line of reality is like, why is this one? And so Laurie Petty, for some reason, agrees to teach Keanu Reeves how to swim. Sorry, surf.
Because he used his galaxy brain powers and say, I also lost my mum and dad. And like,
yeah, what he does, Sam, is he abuses his FBI job to play on her trauma and manipulate her. Yeah. Like, Johnny Utah, you're not a good guy.
Well, no, that's completely
run away from you at the end of this movie.
That completely reads as a cop thing to do, though, doesn't it? Let's not. This, in fact, that's probably quite light. In terms of the conduct that we could expect.
I was going to say no black people got shot in that exchange, I suppose.
That is a statement of fact. That is a statement of fact, and not something you could say about most
interactions with the police. Yeah.
Oh no! Here comes the police to cancel us.
International waters, baby. We're not in America.
So it does. Yes, it does. Laurie Petty's character does not have a lot to do. Really,
she doesn't.
But she's also.
I think she has good chemistry with Reeves. I think her performance is good, and she's kind of like the in the Fast and Furious in a similar way. She's kind of like the conduit through which the informant is introduced to the gang.
Yeah. She's an important story point.
The movie, because of pacing purposes, very wisely has her damseled so that she's not on screen distracting us from the raw sexual chemistry and anything in the room, chair, table, lamp, Keanu Reeves, whatever. Yeah.
He is magnetic, isn't he?
Oh.
And I think he is a real significant reason why this movie works as well as it does. Because if you don't have him, and if you have, I don't know, there's a line. There's a line right between Patrick Swayze over here, which I think he's on the kind of maybe the sexual end of the scale. He again a bit mystical, bit philosophical.
Cult leader. I'm not joking about that. There's a real kind of like,
but
there's something powerful about this guy. I think, and it's.
But let's maybe think about where we could recast this, because I think if you went the opposite end, the crazy end, someone like Nick Cage would be amazing, but the dynamic would completely fall apart because it would all be about. That's when we'd get to see the real fucking craziness. We get to see.
I think. Do you know what? I disagree. I think Nick Cage would be crazy, but I think in that weird way, in The Rock, or there's a weird vampire movie he's in. Where he's
in The Rock, when he shouts. When he shouts and says,
but what I'm saying, Sam, is that you and me and every other person in every other character in the movie would be like turning and being like, "Is this guy okay?" Like,
That's what I'm
because
saying.
he's just
I'm not saying
mad.
I'm not saying as a replacement. I'm saying in terms of where this fits, maybe someone in the middle.
He's a Batman villain. How has Nick Cage never played a Batman villain? He's
I know.
already a Batman villain.
He'd be great at it, wouldn't he?
Why hasn't he played the Riddler? Why isn't he just the Riddler in real life?
What's the name of? Oh my god, my recall is absolutely terrible. What's the name of the guy in 30 Rock who accidentally shot a guy? Jesus Christ.
Alec Baldwin.
Alec Baldwin, yeah. So I think Alec Baldwin would be like he's like the chaotic neutral, maybe. Like Nick Cage is the completely out there. Maybe Alec Baldwin would sit as like a more menacing feel, whereas Swayze, I think, is so perfect because he manages to get he's the raw sexual energy. He's also got this
He's one character in this movie that kind of needs to be buying his own bullshit. Like Keanu Reeves can be doing a half-assed job because for so much of this movie he is pretending in character. So like the fact that he's not an amazing actor in this movie, I think we can agree on, is fine because we're not. Do you know what I mean? Because he's undercover, so we kind of buy the fact that he's a bit like stuttery and a bit not comfortable in his own skin. And maybe he's a really fantastic actor because he sells all of that. But I don't know. But Patrick Swayze, I think, is just like a force in this movie, and he believes everything he's selling, and he's got this like screen presence, which there's a reason he had such a wild career there for a while.
And look at Phil. Look at the Patrick Swayze catalog. Obviously, Dirty Dancing. He has to lean into that absolutely. I mean, he was breaking himself, jumping off that stage 10,000 times. Like he commits to what he's doing, and I think that commitment, that utter humorlessness in his acting, brings this movie up. It brings this movie from like awkward interaction, or maybe like Reeves and the Bodhi. Is it Bodhi? Bodhi. Maybe his character, they hate each other more. Like that would be something else. I think that another actor would bring to. I think that would be what Alec Baldwin brings to it. 90s Alec Baldwin, that is. Nick Cage would be absolutely off the charts. He'd be like one of the henchmen who's coming, like, yeah, come on, we'll just fuck, just mowing people down in the banks. Whereas Swayze centers the movie, and it centers the movie around these two characters and their relationship. And so when at the end of the film, when we get this great like, I'm going to bring you in, man. It's like, oh, I want to surf, man, and that's pretty much all I've got. I just want to surf. Can I surf? Can you let me surf? Oh, one more time. I definitely won't run away. And then obviously off he goes.
You'll be killed by the surf. Yeah. Then there is a certain amount of it kind of, like you said, Sam, it pins the movie down. Let's talk about the action in this movie for a little bit, and I'm sure we'll circle back to Gary Busey because there's a separate conversation to be had there about how he's in his own crazy.
Yeah. Although actually, Gary Busey seems to have something going on that he's turned into.
He had a car crash, quite a bad motorbike crash. Sorry.
Yeah.
I believe. I think he did suffer some. He did. I can't remember. I don't know if this is before or after. But he did suffer some brain damage, I believe.
I don't know.
This isn't the reading from Wikipedia podcast, so I'm not going to look it up.
No.
But the action in
Google
this movie, the action in this movie, I think, is phenomenal. So we haven't really mentioned the fact that obviously Keanu Reeves is investigating this crime. He initially thinks, as you always do, in the Fast and Furious, honestly, the more I think about it, the more I think they just stole this script and put cars every time there was a surfboard in the script. Because he initially thinks it's this other crew of guys who are, a bit more edgy. They get in a fight. They're like the bad guys on the beach, and they don't like Keanu Reeves because he's a shit surfer.
This
is
the guy
his,
from
armbands and his floaty like things around his middle, and they're like, "Man, you just get in our way." Totally fair comment. This guy can't swim. Get him out of the sea. But they kind of like have a. I think the bust scene where they break into these guys' house. The movie kind of never surpasses this like high point for me in terms of action.
This is one of
there's a lot more emotional involvement later on with what's going on, but this action scene is phenomenal.
This is one of the greatest action scenes I have ever seen, and it's not about what you see, which is it is brutal and it is like graphic and like it's about it feels very real, and it feels the tension that they manage
Because the cops shoot everyone, yeah.
yeah. The tension that they manage to ramp up is wild because he knows, the radios don't work, so they're trying to like.
No, they can't hear them over the lawnmower.
Yeah, over the lawnmower, yeah, of course. And
which I think, by the way, that is such good writing. There is so much skill involved in this, like all the stunt people and the pacing and the shots you're using, and they can't hear each other over the lawnmower. Gary Busey's at the door saying he's looking for a lost dog, and they can't get across to anyone, each other, on these different sides of the. I don't know why Keanu Reeves is there to fucking start with, but they can't communicate. Don't go in because these guys are gearing up like they're fucking, like the bad guys in Die Hard. They are pretty armed.
Yeah, they are packing. They are hitting Normandy.
A couple of revolvers. This is like
they're hitting Normandy Beach. Like within the next 20 minutes.
Yeah, they're taking out Nazi gun emplacements.
Yeah. I'm surprised they have a flamethrower. Like that's where it's.
It's not a Tarantino film, Sam. Come on.
No, it is great, and it's one of those anchor points in the film, isn't it? It's a real set piece, and I think. What you end up having in it though is, as much as it is, machine guns and very bomb, like the bit with the woman like attacking the cop and she's naked and she's screaming, like it feels very much like this feels quite grounded. And it feels like this is the type of thing
that happens to me every day, Sam.
Every day, it's great.
Really sexy women jump out of the shower naked and attack me.
What I mean though is that it feels
tits
like
flying everywhere. It's great.
It feels very. It feels like when you go and do something like this, you don't know what's going to happen. The unexpected, and they're just completely unprepared for what's gonna go on. So the whole and then all throughout the tension's building, and we don't really know what's happening. And then it
becomes a shootout. It becomes much more of like but not a shootout like in Bad Boys, for instance, where it's just gunfire like shattering your eardrums for 40 minutes.
And they've all got quips. Yeah,
exactly. And then we pause, and it's all silent so that someone can say a funny.
It is terrifying.
There's no dialogue in this, I don't think, not much anyway, other than people sort of shouting obscenities and things. Not a lot of dialogue, and you have, by the way, the bravery to actually it's this old-fashioned lawnmower that's spinning, and you're like, someone's going to get their face pushed into that.
Well, that's what I said. That's what I said. I was looking at it. I was like, you see the lawnmower, and the shot choice is very good as well, because they put it down where it's following the mower as it gets, and you think, if someone doesn't get their face shoved in or near that lawnmower, I'm gonna complain. I'm gonna write a letter to the BBC and complain about this, because this is outrageous.
Chekhov's lawnmower.
It must happen, and we get a great, great go at that. Although he shoots it, doesn't he? He shoots the lawnmower. So
Gary Busey has magic bullets that turn mechanical equipment off.
Yeah.
So.
Last scene in Moonraker, where they shot the displays on a plane, the dials on a plane.
Broken now.
And the engine just stopped. Like, what?
Yeah,
what?
Of course.
Trope alert.
We had my brother-in-law and I rented a big dumper thing to help some building work, and we tipped it off this little embankment, because obviously we're dickheads and we don't know what we're doing. There's an emergency stop on that. Didn't stop. Started burning its own oil. And then we're like, it'll keep going until it either explodes or stops. I think we could have riddled it full of bullets. I'm not sure would have stopped it. That's just not how machines work as a rule.
Yeah, I think you probably wouldn't have got your deposit
back. Maybe they're
back.
EMP bullets, Sam, somehow, and that turns off a petrol engine. That doesn't work.
I don't know. I think it would be very appreciated at certain points if you could just. Although again,
tech bullets. They're tech bullets. It's from this video game, not Logic, Sam. They're tech bullets. They turn things off or hack it. It hacks it. Hack the lawnmower.
Beep, 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 beep.
It's play the little mini game where you have to match all the symbols, and then it unlocks, and you've got control of the lawnmower.
Yeah. I think that, let's hope next time you tip some kind of machinery that you can utilize that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you have all this scene, and somehow Gary Busey isn't killed. And again, the whole scene is just fantastic. The cinematography, I think, is really, really good. A lot of over-the-shoulder shots, a lot through the cracks of doorways. It's kind of all you want from an action scene, I think, in a way that maybe, like, we can talk about the sort of the ending to this movie, which is action in a different way. I kind of wanted more of this in this movie. And then the reveal at the end as well, that there's one of these guys is an undercover DEA agent and they've just fucked up like 18 months of his life being undercover. Is just, perfect.
Tom Sizemore in an early role as well. Yeah. It is, yeah, it kind of goes to the thing of like, the cops are pretty fucking incompetent all the way through this movie. Like, they don't really ever get what they're after. You know, they manage to fuck up and fuck up and fuck up. And you think, well, there you go. There's billions and billions of US dollars.
Well,
you know,
it's because they're portrayed to be like incompetent and arrogant and like, you know what I mean? They know better. And that's
not spiritual,
it all goes
connected to the ocean, man.
It all goes to sort of like building up Bodhi and his crew. And that's why Keanu Reeves has got the allure of it, is because everyone else he works with is a fucking dickhead. And so he's like, yeah, they are all horrible, and these guys are pretty chill, and you know, we just get drunk on the beach, and there's loads of sexy women in bonfires, and who wouldn't like that, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the Laurie Petty figures out what's going on, though, doesn't it? We get a couple of other bits, but let's, you know, you've seen.
We have the president's thing where Keanu Reeves chases them. And he's not disguised.
I thought that was... yeah, well, there we go. They
again,
it out, didn't they?
It's fun, kind of Ferris Bueller-y cinematography here of, like, jumping over fences. I really got a chuckle out of, and I don't want to not mention it.
The dog cannon.
The dog cannon, where Patrick Swayze, in a mask, is running away. And is he Reagan?
He's Reagan, yeah.
And he's running away, and he's, like, running through this house, and Keanu Reeves runs around the corner, and Patrick Swayze stood there, and he throws this dog at him. Right, so there's a couple of things I want to talk about here. Number one, the movie is asking you to believe that Patrick Swayze is running away, he knows that Keanu Reeves is chasing him. He stops for long enough to pick up this enormous dog and wait round a corner and be like, wait for it, and go, get him. Right, and then he's running away again. Have you saved any time there?
No.
Have you stopped this chase?
You could have.
Is for filming that, they had to use a real dog in the shot where you see Patrick Swayze holding it. That's a real dog, I think. But it's a puppet they throw at Keanu Reeves, and he like fights off. That isn't a really simple shot in this chase scene. That isn't like a right, set it up, pick the fence up. That's quite like a lot of choreography for Patrick Swayze rubbing a dog at his pursuer.
If someone
Who wrote that? Who greenlit that? What 7 or 8 stunt people and puppeteers and makeup designers getting filmed?
Someone was paid. Someone was paid a lot of money to orchestrate that. If someone threw my dog at, he would just look at me like, what? He's not going to instinctively attack, and if he can hold the dog long enough, surely he's getting bitten. And you think, all this time, how long have you been there? 30 seconds, 40 seconds? Who knows? You could be 40 seconds down the road. Or you could have hidden somewhere. Like, I always think that in chases. Why are we just running in a straight line?
Why aren't we hiding? Yeah.
Just hide somewhere. Just get right underneath and just stay there for the rest of the day. You know, just piss there. It's fine. You'll get away. It's just nonsensical. The dog is nonsensical, and this whole chase.
Also, you're in disguise. Surely, if you don't know who's you know, you just run into a crowded place, into a back room. Take off your shirt, jacket, and your tie and your mask, and get rid of them, and then just walk out.
I know.
It's just some dude in a shirt.
Except, and this is right. We need to press ahead because there's so much madness that comes up after this point. So you could do that, Dave. Except we know, and Patrick Swayze knows that Keanu Reeves knows who they are, because at this point he's seen them. He's seen the guy, he knows who's chasing him, and he knows that that's the dude I've been fucking teaching to surf for the past 4 days. And so Swayze, Reeve for some reason doesn't shoot him because, you know, he's like the ocean man and all that stuff. And they look each other in the eye for what feels like minutes. And they obviously acknowledge
Keanu Reeves says, "I love that man too much to shoot him dead. I killed 4 people this morning. I can't kill another person already."
I just can't. And then we get.
It's a very iconic scene, though.
It is iconic, but I think it's overall.
This is the scene that's parodied in Hot Fuzz. Like, it's a scene that kind of like, you talk about sort of genre movies, and there's a reason why this is kind of the peak of the genre, because that is silly. When you talk about it like that, he falls, he hurts his knee, he's got a gun, he can shoot this guy in the leg,
Chekhov's
whatever.
knee.
You know, Chekhov's knee, Chekhov's football career-ending knee injury. And like, he can shoot him. He doesn't have to kill him, but he can shoot him. And like, he has the angst of like, I'm literally shooting a gun in the air, and that is my like way of getting out aggression. And
silly,
like,
silly.
On the face of it, that's deeply, deeply silly.
I want to move on from it because it is only the foundation of the silliness. It isn't even the peak, because fast forward the next scene ish. And they're all just like hanging around the fire, saying, well, that was a bit bad, wasn't it? Yeah, that was a bit bad. But, like, let's just carry on. Fine. And then here comes limping Keanu Reeves. And he's like, hey, guys, what's up?
No, he doesn't. No.
He does, because they invite him. They invite him to go skydiving. I'm being facetious.
You're confused. No, but literally what happens, I just want to explain it, because I don't know if your dementia, your own personal dementia, has gotten in the way here. Keanu Reeves doesn't go to their house and be like, oh, hey guys, it's fine, don't kill me. He's sleeping with Laurie Petty. She, I think, finds his badge or something, and she storms off. He goes back to sleep like any decent man who's just had sex. And he wakes up, and Bodhi's at his door. And he's like, oh, come on, man, get dressed. Yeah.
I'm being facetious, Dave. I'm being facetious. What I'm saying
is... No facetiousness. Moratorium on being facetious.
What I'm saying is that basically they're just fine. Everyone knows. They both know who each other are. And he invites this guy. Shut up. Just shut up a fucking second. Just shut up a second, right? I don't want to hear about your thoughts on reality. This is the stupidest...
You don't want to hear about reality.
This is the stupidest part of the film, because... everyone knows who each other are, and he invites him on a fucking like death trap ride to say, hey, want to come skydiving with us? And Keanu Reeves is like, yeah, sure, no problem, that's fine. I can skydive. Nope, this is fine. He doesn't run away. He doesn't try and resist in any way, even though he knows what's going to come. And then the second stupidest part of this thing is that when they're up in the air, they all joke about parachutes and packing parachutes and blah, blah, blah. And they all swapping parachutes around, and it's all and they do not kill Keanu Reeves. Why? Why do they not do that? Because that would be the ultimate, that would be the ultimate way for them to get out of this situation. Because then they'd be like, well, the cop's dead. We can just fuck off and do another bank, or we can go to Mexico, or wherever else. It's stupid. It's a great, amazing stunt. I love this stunt. It's such a cool scene.
I'm not going to show
make sense.
Time. But I kind of get what you mean. But like, do you not think that is actually a really tense scene? Where I get what you mean, but obviously they know who Keanu Reeves is, and he knows who they are, and they know that he knows who they are.
And that he knows that they know that they know who they are.
Exactly. It's all very complicated. But they come in, and because they're acting normally, Keanu Reeves, who like... he doesn't necessarily quite know how to act in this situation, because they come in quite normally in acting, but it's also like this implied, like, oh, come on, man. And if he says, oh, hold on. And, so how I read it is he's going along with it because he's like, right, well, if I suddenly stop and say, listen, this is ridiculous. We're all grown men here. You're bank robbers and I'm an FBI agent, right? That's when they might shoot him. So maybe he's going along with it to be like, right. And he's in the plane and he's like, well, I don't really want to jump, but these guys might murder me. But they could have murdered him in his house. For me, I think the parachute scene, like, it was all stupid. Don't get me wrong. I think the parachute scene is like wonderfully tense. Shut up. I'm talking now. I think it's wonderfully tense and funny where he gets given a parachute and he says, who packed this parachute? Because like in his mind, he's like, well, they're going to murder me and bury me in the desert, right? They're going to murder me.
Which is what they should
do. Right. But then Buddy's like, oh, no, I don't have that parachute. Take this parachute. And then they all do that. And they're all fucking in, because they're all psychopaths. They're all enjoying the living shit out of this because they know he thinks but then he can't keep track of all these parachutes he's been given, and he's like, oh my God, I'm going to be killed. What is happening here?
So your thinking is that Keanu Reeves, as they come into the room, he doesn't know about Lloyd Petty yet, and I think if you fix this by revealing that they've already captured Lloyd Petty, and that, so that's why he does it. That's why he does this crazy shit, right? Because they are unhinged. They are thrill seekers.
Yeah.
I get that, but your argument is that he goes in and agrees with this because he might get shot. Right.
Well, he's not armed. He tries to put
or something. Yeah. Anyway, no. Whatever.
My argument isn't that he thinks he's
let me
kill him
finish
anyway.
the point. Let me finish
my
the
argument
point.
is it plays, Sam. The movie is paced that you're not like,
no,
why is he doing this? What a stupid movie. Oh, what ruined the movie plot. I'm Sam, and I want perfect movies where everyone could. I would do that, and I wouldn't do that.
No, what I'm saying is your logic doesn't make sense because he thinks it's
not my logic. It's Catherine Bigelow's logic.
Shut up a second. Let me get the fucking point. He thinks that he's going to be shot, and so the alternative to that is to fall from the sky at terminal velocity and smash into the ground. And you're like, you know what? Shoot me on the ground. Just shoot. I'll kneel down. I'll look that way. You don't even have to look in my eyes. Back of the head, pop. That's it. That's the end of me.
Oh, Sam. The only argument there could possibly be is that he's hoping that at some point he'd be able to get away.
Some way of getting from 4,000 feet without.
Oh, Sam, it's fine because later on he jumps out of a plane without a parachute on his own cognizance. So it's fine. Ultimately, it's not as stupid as it could be because later it's even stupider.
But that makes sense. To me, that makes more sense because at that point he's more invested. Now, again, I agree with you.
Cops don't have consciences. You don't remember reading about that US cop who was undercover and for 4 or 5 years got married and had 2 or 3 children with this woman who thought he was, a drug dealer
over
or
here as well.
Or something. And then he just fucked off. And then he just fucked off back to his other wife.
Dreadful. Jesus. So what we're saying, I think we've right each other's throats here. But that scene is a great scene. It's an amazing scene. It's an amazing stunt. Skydiving. I think another James Bond movie we just watched. Skydiving stunts should be in every movie. Even slow political thrillers. Let's just slap a skydiving theme in there, like fucking brilliant. It all works so well. It's amazing to watch, and they actually did it, and Swayze did like 80 jumps to get it right.
So well.
Brilliant.
They do it.
Move on.
We have the bank robbery.
Well, hold on, because again, it's stupid because he says, "You're going to help me rob a bank. That's what you're going to do. Otherwise, I'm going to kill your girlfriend." And we don't have iPhones haven't been invented yet, so there's no way of me stopping what this. Okay, cool. So now he's invested in the bank robbing thing. He doesn't get a mask, and you just think, right, Keanu, just play it out. Just play it out, man. Just pretend to be killed. Just faint. Just collapse in the middle. You don't have to do anything else after this point. These lunatics.
Fair, Sam. He's been on the job for about 3 weeks. He hasn't had any training.
Oh, no.
You came out of FBI Academy 3 weeks ago. We were
literally
the target. You shoot all the bad guys with guns, but not the babies and the mothers with prams. We literally see that in the movie.
The little girl with the textbooks, like in Men in Black,
What's she doing reading calculus? Obviously, she's an alien. There's something up with that.
Exactly. All of it is nonsensical, and yet this is a great part of the movie. This is where the action really picks up, doesn't it?
Is that your dog running about?
It is my dog. You talk algorithms. Tell me about this film.
Yeah, so we have the bank robbery scene where we have quite a not unforgivable, but we have a silly scene where this cop who wants to die makes this security guard basically commit suicide, and they fuck the whole thing up.
Why is this guy? This fucking
cop. John McClane wannabe. And I'm certain the police training says if you're fucking going to the bank on your own time, and there's a robbery, you don't get your gun out and just get civilians shot. That's not how being a police officer works. It's just a bit silly anyway, but it kind of leads us into the end of the movie because they fuck up the bank robbery. And Patrick Swayze also wants to go to the vault, which is not their MO, and that's why they've been successful, is because they just get the cash draws. You don't get much money, but you get in and out fast. That's kind of the whole thing, and why the FBI is so intent on catching these people. So they fuck it up. Some of them get a shot. I can never keep track of how many fucking
middle. There's one left, isn't there? By the end, there's one left. Basically,
when they get on the plane, there's
one of the long-haired
Bodie,
guys.
Bodie and two of them at the airport, and then Gary Busey kills one of them and injures another one, but then he gets killed.
Does
and
he
then
get
once
killed?
again,
does he get
who?
Busey? Did he actually killed?
Yeah, he's dead as fuck.
Yeah, I can remember.
He's dead. D-E-D, dead.
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 I don't know where funny joke, is it?
That's from something. D-E-D, dead is from something. I don't know what, but I find it intensely hilarious.
Probably ungoogleable, isn't it?
Yeah. But then we are in the same situation we were in 20 fucking minutes ago. Because
this is where
I am once again boarding a plane with these bank robbers for no reasons.
Now, love the skydiving.
By the way, he was under arrest 6 minutes ago.
I know. Oh yeah, it's just right. So I can't. I'm trying to collect my thoughts here because this is crazy. This is crazy. Not only one but two skydiving scenes in your movie. Cool, fine. Is it a skydiving movie? No. Okay. Well, I think you're maybe pushing yourself a little bit here. I think really they should have cut for time as well because it's a lengthy enough movie. Cut the first skydiving scene and then, or maybe have a reference somewhere to like, oh yeah, we love all like dangerous sports and stuff. I think the impact of this second one is quite muted because you kind of know, we've done this before. The excitement of it is taken away a little because we're just jumping out of a plane again and all of that.
But this time, Sam, he's pausing it and there's no circus tent.
There's no circus tent.
There's no trapeze here.
Him jumping out of the plane, and this is where the homoeroticism is just pumped back into this film. Because
it works, doesn't it? Because he's screaming with it. He's got this gun and he jumps out of a plane and he's screaming, and you're like, all right, film, this is stupid as fuck, but for just a minute, I'm gonna.
What I'm talking about, though.
I'm like the judge when I'm like, I'll allow it. I'll allow it.
Go on.
You better be going somewhere with this, counsel.
You're on thin ice, counselor. Approach the bench. Because the metaphor
the magic of this movie, isn't it? Because
hold on. The metaphor is what is important here because they're jumping out, and he jumps out without a parachute. Keanu Reeves does, and he's off down, and the other guy who's like shot is also jumping out of the plane. I'm like, fucking just leave me in the plane.
This is so depressing. You don't even get Bodie being like, "Oh, he's dead," or like,
they just say, "Fuck him."
He's just like, I'll just strap a parachute to you. There's absolutely no way you're surviving this. I can't cope with being real about this.
He's already injured. He's already fatally injured. Like you're just gonna throw him out of a plane, and then like pull his back. Anyway,
did we do a good job, Bodie? Did we steal a load of cash?
We
did. Unnamed sidekick.
We stole $17,000, enough to keep us.
You buy 6 houses with that in 1991, Sam. That's a lot of money.
But the metaphor, and this really sums up the movie to me, is that they end up that they're both falling, and that Keanu Reeves hasn't got a parachute. And what do they need to do? They need to come together, in air, live. Like they need to do it, and they need to grasp each other, hold each other tight, and they need to fall down onto the ground together and then roll around in the mud for a bit. And I think
Chekhov's football career-ending knee injury
his knee,
into play because he can't get up.
I genuinely really like it. I really, really like it because obviously that's not really what the film's going for, but there is an undercurrent here of that. There is an undercurrent here of this like male relationship, and it's not necessarily sexual. We're having fun with that. It's really like these guys are kind of there is a bit of like a cat and mouse thing and a love and hate thing, but mostly they just kind of like love each other. Like that's the thing. That is what the movie's saying, is that these guys are connected. They're soulmates in a platonic way or not.
Yeah. There's a connection between them, and they like.
And the connection is literally diving out of a plane without a parachute because you want to catch him, but also you kind of want to like, you know.
Yeah, you want to look at you the way that Jaws looks at Roger Moore in Moonraker.
Exactly. Exactly. Like, and that's great. And I think it's surprising as well from a 1991.
And it kind of works, though. This is what we were getting at earlier. Is it kind of works because the Patrick Swayze character is kind of written for you to like and for you to root for. And even when he's doing all these shitty things, all of his friends are dead and he does not seem bothered.
No,
and he was going to have Laurie Petty killed, who was his ex-girlfriend, who's going to have her killed, and he's not even bothered. Like, even then, you still like this guy and root for him and want him to get away. And that's a real testament to the writing of the movie. And I think it helps that you had that gang of, like, bad guys who get shot earlier, because they draw focus for so much of it where, you know, he's not out there like strangling babies. He is throwing dogs at people, which does seem like it'd get you on an RSPCA list at the very least. But, you know, you still like him, and you kind of like, as a viewer in your head, you're kind of making excuses for this guy. Like, he's not, you know, he's still a good quote unquote guy, despite, you know, because he's got the mate who's a horrible guy who's going to kill Laurie Petty. And I don't think he actively shoots anyone in this movie. I could be wrong. I think it's kind of like a lot of the other guys.
I think he does
shooting people.
Possibly, yeah.
He might shoot the cop in the bank, maybe.
I think maybe, yeah. That's what I was thinking as well. So then he gets away. Then we get a 9 months later thing, and we get some really good setup.
We're always talking at Christmas, Frank.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
We do. We're going international, and your jurisdiction is ? And it's all fine.
Why are
We're gonna have a showdown on a beach in Australia.
Why are you here? Where are the rest of the police? I mean, there are clearly other police here. We see them later on. They're just like hanging back. What's going on?
This is the bit of the movie, Sam, by the way, that I was like, this is a bit too rich. So, the last time we saw the FBI, they were carting Keanu Reeves off in handcuffs for robbing this bank.
Which doesn't make any sense.
Now, he is doing a fucking joint operation with the Australian police in his official capacity of some guy who's almost certainly been thrown out of the FBI.
Yeah, third week on the job, he gets arrested for
because he gets arrested, and after he gets arrested, he gets his partner killed and boards a plane and lets the guys get away again, leaving bodies in his wake.
Absolutely staggering.
But maybe the Australian police, they love a love story. They love love. And Keanu Reeves,
they love surfing, man. Obviously,
they love surfing. And listen,
yeah. And also, this guy's an immigrant.
In a platonic way, I just love him, and we've got to have our final thing. I'll arrest him. It's fine, but it just has to be me, because there are things I need to say to him, which, you know, need to be between a man and a man. And so they're like, you know what, mate?
Peace and love,
we
mate.
Love.
Yeah, exactly. Tick off, imaginary podcast, bingo, offensive Australian accent. Well done.
We offended Australians again.
Yeah.
Ring, 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 ring.
America, Australia. Let's talk about the setup and payoff, because they do set this up really well earlier on about like the 50-year storm, you know, which is fucking doesn't make any meteorological sense.
Anything though, Sam, it's the mythology of. In the Fast and the Furious, the mythology is that Vin Diesel's, there's the car in the garage, his dad's big muscle car. Yeah, that's the mythology. Is this family connection? Even Gone in 60 Seconds, I think Nick Cage's dad was a racer or something.
He has always like a car as well, doesn't it? Yeah.
There's always like a.
It's a holy grail,
a history thing. Yeah, it's
the holy grail.
So in this subculture, you have this mythology, and it really is that. And in this surfing, there's this mythology that, like, there's this 50-year storm. It's the most amazing storm. Like, you'll only ever get to surf it once, and if you're really into it, you know, it's like
set up. And then we get the end of the movie, the payoff where they're at the 50-year storm. They're at Bondi Beach, and not Bondi Beach, Bells Beach, excuse me. And they're, you know, he's going to go out there. It's raining like all mother. It looks great. They're all dripping, you know, like in that great movie way we're like, God, if there was water on my face, I would have to wipe it off. Like, it's so annoying. Just wipe your face. You've got to wipe your face. How would you? But anyway, they're carrying on, just doing the, you know, thought,
Well, I've never had an emotional in the rain kind of confrontation with a nemesis / lover, and I feel like maybe in that
you're missing
situation,
out,
then
man.
you've
It's
got other things to worry
fantastic.
about.
Absolutely.
I imagine it's just a real high. I imagine.
Me and Ross,
You're in the
just-
rain. It's
we had a moment, man. It was amazing. But this is a good ending to the film, though, isn't it? I think this is a good ending to the film. I think this ends up. They have a little bit of a tussle, and then he handcuffs to him and says, "It's over, man. I'm going to bring you in." And then we get the Patrick Swayze like the speech.
I
It
ain't
says,
coming back.
You know, I just want to. He talks about, you know, how much they love each other and blah blah blah. I love you and you love me, and let's go and not really, but he basically says, "Let me just do this."
KISSING.
Yeah, let me do this thing, and then off he goes, and he goes to his death, doesn't he? He goes to his death. Like that's the thing.
We can
he's
presume,
not.
yeah.
He's not because it's absolutely, you know, it's a massive storm. You can see there, and he wants to finish it off. I love how they swapped haircuts.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it?
That Keanu Reeves now has his, you know, short hair, and this is where I think the spiritualism and the mysticism and like the metaphor for this film really wraps up nicely. In that is a great ending to your movie. He finally catches him, and actually, what he wanted to was almost like say goodbye, you know, rather than necessarily slap him in chains and put him in a prison for 20 years. And he's quite happy. He's quite happy, despite the fact that he throws his FBI badge into the water. It's the end of his what is like 3 weeks and 9 month career, as we've established.
Yeah.
In the FBI.
It feels like a in that moment he learns that like he doesn't want to be the FBI guy. He doesn't want to be like. And the idea is
he's
that
become a
he's going to
surfer,
go home and he's going to surf and he's going to fuck Laurie Petty and that's going to be his life. And like he doesn't need to be the long dick of the law in the FBI or whatever. And you know, and a weaker movie would maybe lay that out a bit more.
We'd have a scene when we see him later on, and that would be and I think that's it. You know, all the way through the movie, we do get a lot of restraint, as much as we have also like 2 skydiving scenes, but we also get a lot of restraint in how they're showing off what's happening. And this is a great example, I think, of some of that restraint in saying, actually, let's just leave it there. He throws the badge in. It's pretty clear. Patrick Swayze's off to his death, and he's gonna live. You know, he's gonna fulfill his mission, his noble, the noble life that he wants to lead. He's here on this beach.
He's gonna go and rob Terry Benedict.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he managed to get
Terry
away,
Benedict?
and
Unclear.
Point Break 2. He's it's like a breakup
They didn't
movie
make
instead.
Point Break 2, did they? But they did remake this movie in 2015, I think.
Wow, really?
Yeah, it bombed. Absolutely bombed. I don't even know who was in it.
I cannot believe they tried that.
It was a proper big budget movie, I think.
No, action thriller developed by Erickson Core and written by Kirk. Is a remake of the 90s American, German, Chinese co-production. I don't think it was that big a film.
Oh, that's a lot of people.
Budget
involved.
105 million though.
That's quite a big movie. That's quite a big movie.
105 million. That's amazing. We should absolutely not watch this. Why would we do that? Edgar Ramirez,
Luke Bracey, Ray Winstone. Oh, I know Ray Winston.
Yeah, then
He's alive.
he'll do everything.
Shocking.
Gambling adverts. That is
anyone else on that cast list you recognise? Delroy Lindo playing an FBI agent. Shocker. He's the cop in Gone in 60 Seconds.
Yeah.
11%
11% based on 109
and then
reviews.
a load of non people.
Wow, and that's really that kind of sums up Hollywood, doesn't it? It kind of sums up Hollywood in that we don't, as I said at the start, Point Break is a little bit more intellectual. It's a little bit more going on. We've got like actual human characters and relationships. So much of that must come from Bigelow, and
the screenplay I think was presumably like reasonably strong as well. and it all comes together well. It's the magic of a movie where action, I think, is maybe like the trashiest of genres, because you could just go the Michael Bay route, have a bunch of fucking explosions, and that's going to get you through 90 minutes of movie a lot of the time. But actually, when you apply the craft like that's been done in this film, and you write the dialogue well, and the cinematography is good, and it helps you shooting, and there's beautiful locations. Not the banks and the FBI offices, but the beaches and the skydiving scenes. I think that really helps to tie the movie together and be like this. It's a real summer movie. I can imagine watching this in December and just like feeling a bit more happy about, the general sort of like weather and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's got that like, it's developed that kind of cult thing as well, isn't it? That cult feeling of like, this is a film that was probably more influential on like other action movies, and we get to see the kind of longer tail of like where the more thoughtful action movie comes from. And you compare it to a lot of the crap that was coming out around, even like Die Hard and stuff, which is very much more on the action side. Like, this is more of a, I don't know, it's hard to describe, isn't it? And we don't necessarily get that many movies.
This isn't
like
a movie
this.
where a cop solves a problem.
Yeah.
This is a movie where Keanu Reeves is kind of along for the ride. And that kind of, therein lies the strength, because the action's happening and he's actively participating in it. But it's not Die Hard where he's saving the day. It's not James Bond where he's saving the world. It's not Ocean's 11,
is it?
It's not Ocean's 11 where they're breaking up a seemingly functional relationship and robbing an upstanding businessman. It's so that allows it to breathe, and you aren't solving all the world's ills. It's a very personal story. I think that's kind of why it works. In a similar way to why Bandits is a personal story about these characters and where they end up, in a lot more in more ways than it's a bank robbing film. A lot of that movie, and
thoroughly enjoyable. Certainly, as a film I'd never seen before, I was pretty gripped throughout. And you can't take that for granted. For a movie from 1991, even as well made as this. Catherine Bigelow, though, I don't really like a lot of her other movies. Like, there's a lot of Foot Locker, Hurt Locker. I not really. There's also that. Is it the Bin Laden ones? It's Zero Dark 30 or something?
Yeah, I would agree. I think this is probably her only movie that I really, really love.
Yeah.
And that's fine. It's fine to,
okay.
If only we could all have one really amazing movie that people like.
Yeah. Coming soon to the Imaginary Movie Podcast.
The Imaginary movie.
Yeah. It'll be like one of those crap Channel 5. It's the pornography films aren't quite on.
It airs once at 3:00 in the morning.
Yeah, the porn isn't quite on yet. But be right after that. So plow through this, and then you'll get to the Channel 5.
I kind of envisaged our movie being quite sexually explicit anyway. Not porn, obviously not porn. It's more tasteful than that. More tasteful.
Is it? Yeah, like homoerotic. I hope at least that would be my.
Certainly. But also just erotic.
Yeah. Just a lot of finding eroticism in everyday objects. Look at that slender chair. Look at the gentle curve of the Ford Mondeo.
It's just furniture having sex with other furniture. It's very avant-garde. Almost no dialogue, and it's 14 hours long.
I think we should never release this episode, just so we could protect the absolute diamond of an idea that you've just outlined for us.
Bodyguard. I feel like we've already shot our load, so to speak.
Oh, Bodyguard. God damn it. What was that? What was that from? What previous episode was that from? I can't even remember.
Rush Hour.
I
know that because it had nothing to do with Rush Hour.
It was one of our famous tangents. Yeah. Well, Point Break is a good movie. That's what we can end with, isn't it? And I think if
Point Break, a movie that came out 31 years ago, is good. It's pretty
Certified fresh.
Worth a watch.
By the Imaginary Movie Podcast. Yeah, that's it. Right, there we go, Dave. We'll see you next week. We'll be watching something else. I don't even know what we're watching. I have no idea. We're running wild at the moment, aren't we?
On YouTube? During toilet breaks throughout the week?
Dogma on YouTube. Excellent.
Ooh, yes, teasers for next week. Why isn't Dogma streaming?
Oh, that's
this Google doesn't exist, and anyone's listening to this.
I know. We've had a smattering of viewers on and off as we go through, so
It's always a good sign. Right.
There we
Get
go.
the flock out of here, Sam. I've got
Bye-bye.
Bank to rob.